Two of Fox News star hosts facing heat today, one of them getting a rare rebuke from Fox News, but neither is apologizing. I'll start with Jeanine Pirro. Over the weekend, she said this about Muslim Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Think about it. Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
Fox News condemning her remarks, but taking no other visible action. And Pirro is not exactly saying sorry, issuing this response instead. I'll read it for you. I've seen a lot of comments about my opening statement from Saturday night's show, and I did not call Representative Omar un-American. My intention was to ask a question and start a debate, but of course, because one is Muslim does not mean you don't support the Constitution. I invite Representative Omar to come on my show anytime to discuss all of the important issues facing America today. Meantime, another Fox primetime host, Tucker Carlson, is also under fire for past comments he made to a shock jock named, wait for it, Bubba the Love Sponge. Not just once, but over the course of several years.
Warren Jeffs didn't marry underage girls.
No, he's in prison for facilitation of child rape.
Whatever the hell that means.
That means
he's in prison because he's weird and unpopular, and he has a different lifestyle that other people find creepy.
No, he's an accessory to the rape of children. That is a felony, and a serious one at that.
What do you mean an accessory? He's like got some weird religious cult where he thinks it's okay to, marry underage girls, but he didn't do it. Why wouldn't the guy who actually did it, who had sex with an underage girl, he should be the one who's doing life? The rapist in this case has made a lifelong commitment to live and take care of the person. So it is a little different. I mean, let's be honest about it. Now, this guy may be a child rapist. I'm just telling you that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and raping her. That's bullshit. I love women, but they're extremely primitive. They're basic. They're not that hard to understand. I feel sorry for unattractive women. I mean, there's nothing they did,
What's better than hockey, weed, and whores? I mean...
But first of all, there's no Canadian woman that you'd want to pay to sleep with. Anybody who answers my trophy wife is my favorite possession is my hero. I don't give a shit. I'm voting for the guy.
You want to Sarah Palin.
There's that. There is that. I'll agree with that.
Okay, just to recap, the host of Fox's most coveted time slot insulted women, even called a Supreme Court justice unattractive, and he also suggested underage marriage is not as serious as forcible child rape, calling rape shield laws totally unfair. But like Pirro, he didn't apologize. He called his words, quote, naughty, and instead pushed viewers to tune in tonight. Joining me now, CNN political commentator Ana Navarro and CNN senior political analyst John Avlon. John, no apologies for the vile rhetoric. Instead, the message is tune in. Mm-hmm. Is that their business model?
No. I think what they're seeing, though, is a contagion from the shock and awe business model they've done, where it's play to the base and flame with agitation, anxiety, anger, fear at the other. And it gets them into trouble because guess what? You're playing with fire when you play with those forces. Jeanine Pirro's comments, those were impromptu, people.
Other people had seen them, okayed them, allowed them to go on.
And she endorsed them. It wasn't a slip of the tongue, a misspeaking. And for alleged constitutional conservatives, to say something like that, they should really actually read the Constitution, which, freedom of religion is a pretty prominent part. But it's part of the game they've been playing. I think with Tucker, those comments, I'm glad you played the Warren Jeffs one, because I think that's in some ways the most serious.
Tell me why.
Because he's making light of sort of institutionalized child rape with forced marriages inside a religious cult.
Yep.
There's nothing funny about that. And his defense will be, look, you're calling to a shock jock conversation. It's a long time ago. I shouldn't have said those things. There's a degree of normalization. I mean, when Bubba the Love Sponge is trying to be the voice of reason, reining him in on that one, that's its own sort of warning. And look, Tucker can be a charming, funny guy in person, but I think you're accountable for what you say when you have a microphone. And that is crossing several lines.
What do you think?
I suspect that, I'm not sure that I can even buy that he's a charming, funny guy in person. And to me, it's far more important what you're like when you are being viewed by millions of
Yeah,
people.
when you have the mic.
And the same way you just said that constitutional conservatives have got to think about what Pirro said, social values voters and Christian voters and pearl clutchers and the people who have all the trouble when other people do crazy things should also really question themselves and look at themselves in the mirror and say, why are we listening to this guy who we just heard on audio, say some really vile things. But then again, Brooke, take a look at who the Fox viewers are. They listen to, on audio, a Republican candidate, a Republican nominee saying some very vile things and then still voted him in. So I think the standards are different. I think the bars have been lowered. I think they don't apologize because they don't feel like they have to apologize because
The
they
refusal
can't.
to apologize. The refusal to apologize, and not only that, and I know that Tucker made those comments while he was at MSNBC, and they should be answering some of these questions as well. But it's like you look at what happens with Fox News, and a host steps in some of it, maybe a semi-rebuke, and they still have a job, rinse, repeat.
This is the downstream effect of Donald Trump, though. This is, the play of, doubling down, refuse to apologize, distract, attack, deflect, divide. That we see that contagion throughout our political and media culture because it's worked for him. And so you get that echo chamber effect when it comes to Tucker. We'll see what he says tonight. It's impossible to defend some of those things. I will say, though, it's mildly ironic given that late last week he was hitting Joe Biden for comments Biden made in the 1970s about busing, which is a whole other conversation we should have.
Yeah,
but I don't think you can successfully say that should be viewed in the context of its time when I was calling it Bubba the Love Sponge, but everything else is fair game.
And ironically, I think they've made the case for the Democrats saying we're not going to give Fox News the debate, a single debate.
Yeah.
And they've also made the case, and they've also, thrown a life raft to Ilhan Omar with these comments. So you can't take issue consistently with Ilhan Omar questioning whether a, Jewish politician has dual loyalty, where at the same time you're saying one that wears a hijab can have no loyalty to the U.S. Constitution. So you take issue with the one wearing a yarmulke, but you don't take issue when the one wearing a hijab gets called out. It's called hypocrisy. It's called stupidity. And it's called doing a great big favor to Ilhan Omar and the Democrats, both on that issue and the debate issue. Because, at this point they can say, yeah, of course we're not going to give these deplorable people, these, folks who are so tainted and biased and who are misogynist and who are offensive and outrageous a debate. They just made the case for that.
And look, I think that's a really important point about the irony of her attacking Representative Omar on those lines. But that also, look, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And you should be judged by the totality of your life, but also what you say and do when you have the microphone. And the problem is this has been part of the business plan of dividing to conquer, of appearing to narrow but intense niche audiences.
But that's why I started with, is their
exactly.
business model?
No, and I do think, I think this is contagion from the business model.
Gotcha.
I think it's gotten people to a place where nothing's shocking, and they need to find a way to keep dialing that up.
And I bet you that tonight, when you folks tune in to watch Tucker Carlson, which of course I never do, there's going to be video of us having this conversation. And instead of him
do you want to wave?
admitting his,
wave?
yeah, you want to do an over and under?